Emily Martinez had spent 5 years behind the marble desk of the Grandview Hotel, scanning key cards and perfecting her professional smile. She knew every guest's preference, every creak in the lobby floor, every shadow that passed through the revolving doors. But she never expected that an envelope left by a quiet stranger would unravel everything she thought she knew about her workplace and herself. What started as a simple mystery about old blueprints would force her to question loyalty, confront deception, and discover that sometimes the smallest acts of courage echo the loudest. This is the story of how one ordinary night changed everything.
Quick pause. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is absolutely mind-blowing. Emily's shift started like any other Tuesday evening, 6:15. The lobby chandelier cast familiar patterns across the black and white checkered floor. She logged into the reservation system, adjusted the fresh roses in the crystal vase, and prepared herself for another 8 hours of practiced pleasantries. The Grandview Hotel wasn't the largest establishment in the city, but it carried a certain dignified charm. Built in 1952, it had weathered economic downturns and changing neighborhoods, maintaining its boutique appeal to guests who valued character over corporate uniformity. Emily appreciated that about the place, even if her role in it felt increasingly invisible. She had started here at 23, fresh out of community college with a hospitality certificate and a head full of ambitions. Manager, maybe. Event coordinator. Something that mattered. 5 years later, she was still scanning key cards and answering the same questions about checkout times and Wi-Fi passwords. The promotion Dana had hinted at last year never materialized. The raise came as 50 cents per hour. "Good evening, Emily." Mr. Chen approached the desk with his usual measured pace. Room 314, monthly reservation, always the third Tuesday. He carried the same worn leather messenger bag, wore the same navy windbreaker regardless of season. "Good evening, Mr. Chen. Your usual room is ready." He nodded, accepting the key card she slid across the desk. Most guests would hurry toward the elevators, eager to drop their bags and decompress. Mr. Chen always paused, his gaze drifting across the lobby as if seeing it for the first time. Tonight, his eyes lingered on the ornate ceiling molding, tracing the Art Deco patterns that had yellowed with age. "Do you ever wonder about the stories buildings hold?" he asked quietly. Emily blinked, caught off guard. In 3 years of monthly visits, Mr. Chen had never initiated conversation beyond polite greetings. "I suppose I haven't thought much about it." Every nail, every beam, someone's hands placed them there. Someone's vision brought them into being. He shifted his bag higher on his shoulder. "We walk through spaces without considering the lives that created them." Before Emily could respond, he moved toward the elevator, leaving her with the strange weight of his words. The rest of the evening passed in its usual rhythm. A young couple checked in for their anniversary. A business traveler complained about her reservation being under the wrong name. Emily fixed it with practiced efficiency, her mind only half present. The other half kept returning to Mr. Chen's question. Did she wonder? Not really. The Grandview was just work, 4 walls and a paycheck. Yet something in his tone had carried a melancholy that stuck with her. At 10 o'clock, Dana emerged from her office, smoothing her blazer. "I'm heading out. Remember to log the maintenance request before you leave." "Will do." Dana had been Emily's assistant when she first started. Back then, Dana had seemed like everything Emily wanted to become. Confident, decisive, moving up the career ladder with enviable ease. At 32, Dana was already managing the entire property. She drove a nice car, wore expensive watches, and spoke about 5-year plans with the certainty of someone who made things happen. Somewhere along the way, their relationship had shifted. Dana became less mentor, more gatekeeper. Compliments turned sparse. Opportunities evaporated. Emily tried to pinpoint when it changed, but the erosion had been gradual, like water wearing stone. Actually, Emily, Dana paused at the desk, her expression careful. I wanted to give you a heads up. We're bringing in some consultants next month, efficiency experts. They'll be evaluating all departments. Emily's stomach tightened. Evaluating how? Standard stuff, workflow optimization, cost-benefit analysis. Dana's smile didn't reach her eyes. Nothing to worry about if you're doing your job. The implication hung in the air long after Dana left. Emily stared at the computer screen, the words of the reservation system blurring together. Efficiency experts. That was corporate speak for layoffs. She had seen it happen at other hotels. Consultants would come in with their clipboards and spreadsheets, and suddenly positions were restructured and streamlined into non-existence. The lobby phone rang, pulling her back to the present. A guest needed extra towels. She dispatched housekeeping, logged the request, and checked the clock. 11:30. 2 more hours until the night auditor arrived to relieve her. She decided to do a walkthrough of the common areas, partly from professional habit, partly to clear her head. The lobby was quiet this time of night. Most guests were either settled in their rooms or still out exploring the city. Her footsteps echoed against the marble floor as she moved past the sitting area with its vintage leather armchairs and the small library nook that no one ever used. Near the elevator bank, she noticed something on the side table. A manila envelope, thick and slightly bent at the corners. No name, no room number. Someone must have left it behind. Emily picked it up, expecting it to be light, maybe a forgotten travel brochure or takeout menu. But it had weight to it, substance. She returned to the front desk and opened the lost and found log, then carefully unsealed the envelope. Inside were papers, old papers, the kind with yellowed edges and that particular musty smell of documents that had survived decades in storage. She slid them out carefully. Blueprints, architectural drawings of the Grandview Hotel. Her breath caught as she recognized the layout. The lobby, the guest floors, even the small office spaces tucked behind the reception area. But these weren't modern copies. The paper was genuine vintage, the lines drawn by hand in fading ink. In the bottom right corner, a signature. Harold Shen, architect, September 1951. Her mind immediately went to Mr. Chen in room 314. The same last name couldn't be coincidence. Emily studied the drawings more closely. The level of detail was extraordinary. Every molding, every light fixture, every piece of decorative ironwork was meticulously rendered. Whoever this Harold Chen was, he had poured tremendous care into this design. Handwritten notes filled the margins, measurements, material specifications, small sketches of alternative details. One note, written in the same careful hand, made her pause. For Margaret, may this stand as testament to enduring beauty. The dedication felt deeply personal, as if the building itself was a love letter rendered in steel and stone. Emily carefully returned the blueprints to the envelope. She should log this in Lost and Found, but she knew with certainty who it belonged to. Mr. Chen must have left it accidentally. She'd return it to him in the morning before he checked out. But curiosity gnawed at her. She pulled up the guest database and searched for his full name. Chen, Robert, age 55, address in Seattle. He had been staying at the Grandview once a month for the past 3 years, always the same room, always the same dates. No special requests, no complaints, no incidents. A perfect guest who came and went like clockwork. Why would he carry these blueprints? And why come here every month? The questions followed her through the rest of her shift, through the careful handoff to the night auditor, through her drive home to her studio apartment where the radiator clanged and the upstairs neighbors argued in muffled voices. She thought about them as she brushed her teeth, as she set her alarm, as she lay in the dark, waiting to sleep. For the first time in a long time, Emily felt genuinely curious about something at work beyond just simply getting through the day. When Emily arrived for her next shift 2 days later, Mr. Chen had already checked out. She had missed him. The envelope with the blueprint sat in her work locker, waiting for her. She could mail it to a Seattle address, but something made her hesitate. Those drawings felt important, almost sacred. They deserved to be returned in person. Besides, he'd be back in a month, third Tuesday, room 314, always. What Emily didn't know was that Robert Chen would return much sooner than he expected. And when he did, everything she thought she understood about the Grandview Hotel and about Dana would shatter like glass.
The following Monday, Emily was reorganizing the supply closet behind the front desk when she heard voices in Dana's office. The door was slightly ajar, and while Emily wasn't trying to eavesdrop, the tension in the conversation made it impossible to ignore. "The offer is generous, Mr. Voss. You won't find a better deal." Dana's voice had that particular brightness she used when negotiating, like sunlight glinting off something sharp. "Generous for you, perhaps." The male voice was unfamiliar, cultured, with a hint of an accent Emily couldn't place. "But you must understand my position. I'm not merely buying a property. I'm acquiring a piece of architectural history. The emotional value to certain parties is considerable. Which is exactly why the price is what it is." Emily froze, her hands still on a stack of notepads. Dana was selling the hotel? No announcements had been made, no staff meetings about ownership changes. This sounded like something happening in the shadows, away from official channels. "There's the matter of the other interested party," Voss continued, "the grandson. He has been quite persistent in his inquiries. Robert Chen. He has no legal claim. Sentimental attachment isn't recognized in property law." Emily's pulse quickened. Robert Chen, Mr. Chen from room 314. Nevertheless, men with sentimental attachments can become obstacles. They tell stories, they rally support, they complicate clean transactions. Chen doesn't know about the sale yet. By the time he finds out, the papers will be signed. The consultants are scheduled for next month. That's when we'll make the staff reduction announcement. Clean, efficient, no messy emotional appeals. The pieces started connecting in Emily's mind with sickening clarity. The efficiency consultants weren't about optimization, they were about clearing out the staff before a sale. Dana wasn't trying to improve the hotel, she was preparing to liquidate it. "And the historical designation issue?" Voss asked. Dana laughed, but it sounded hollow. "The building is on the historical register, yes, but the interior can be completely renovated. Once you own it, you can gut it and turn it into luxury condos, a boutique office space, whatever you want. The facade stays, but everything inside? Fair game." Emily felt physically ill. The Grandview wasn't just her workplace, it was a landmark. Generations of guests had stayed here. Couples had gotten engaged in the courtyard garden. The hotel had hosted charity galas, political fundraisers, countless small human moments that made up the texture of the city's life. And Dana was selling it to someone who wanted to destroy everything inside. She forced herself to move quietly away from the door, returning to the front desk just as the office door opened fully. Dana emerged with a man in an expensive gray suit, tall, late 40s, with a kind of polished appearance that came from wealth and professional image management. "Mr. Voss, always a pleasure." Dana shook his hand warmly. "I'll have my attorney send over the revised contracts by Wednesday." Voss nodded to Emily with a barest acknowledgement as he passed, the kind of look that said she was furniture, not a person. Dana watched him leave, then turned to Emily with her usual professional mask firmly in place. "How's the supply inventory coming?" "Fine. Almost done." "Good. I need you to pull occupancy reports for the past 18 months. Full breakdown, by season." Dana's tone was brisk, businesslike. "And Emily, those reports are confidential, for management review only." Translation: don't tell anyone what you're working on. Emily nodded, but her mind was racing. Dana was preparing documentation to show potential buyers. Everything was a commodity now. The guest data, the financial records, even the staff themselves reduced the line items on the spreadsheet. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Mr. Chen's question, "Do you ever wonder about the stories buildings hold?" Now she understood why he asked. This wasn't just a building to him, it was his grandfather's legacy, the physical manifestation of Harold Chen's vision and love for someone named Margaret. She thought about the blueprint still in her locker, the meticulous detail, the handwritten notes, the dedication. Harold Chen had built something meant to last, to stand as testament to enduring beauty. And now his grandson came every month to the place his grandfather never got to see completed, only to discover it was being sold to someone who wanted to destroy everything inside. She made a decision. It probably wasn't smart. It definitely wasn't professional, but it felt necessary. She needed to find Robert Chen. The next morning before her shift, Emily searched online. Seattle had dozens of Robert Chens listed, but only one that matched the age in our system. She found a professional profile. Robert Chen, retired architect, worked for a prominent Seattle firm for 30 years. His portfolio included civic buildings, libraries, a museum renovation. His biography mentioned following his grandfather's footsteps, carrying on a family tradition of thoughtful, human-centered design. She drafted an email 3 times, deleting each attempt. What could she even say? A guest you've never spoken to found your blueprints and discovered your manager is secretly selling the hotel your grandfather designed? It sounded paranoid, presumptuous. In the end, she kept it simple. Mr. Chen, you left something at the Grandview Hotel during your last stay. I believe it's important to you. There are also matters concerning the hotel I think you should know about. If you could call me at your earliest convenience, I'll explain everything. Emily Martinez, front desk. She included her personal cell number and hit send before she could second-guess herself. Her shift that day felt endless. Every time her phone vibrated, her heart jumped. But the calls were just spam, the text from her mother asking about Thanksgiving plans. Dana was in and out of meetings all day, her office door mostly closed. Emily processed check-ins and check-outs on autopilot, her mind elsewhere. At 6:30, just as she was preparing to clock out, her phone rang. Unknown number. Seattle area code.
Hello? Miss Martinez, this is Robert Chen. His voice was exactly as she remembered. Quiet, measured, thoughtful. I received your email. I have to admit, I'm very curious about what you felt compelled to reach out about. Emily's mouth went dry. Now that she had him on the phone, the enormity of what she was doing hit her. She was about to betray her boss, potentially tank her own job, all based on a hunch and a feeling that this mattered. I found the blueprints you left, she began. The ones your grandfather drew. A long pause. I see. I apologize for the carelessness. Those are quite valuable to me. I can arrange to have them shipped back. Mr. Chen, that's not why I called. Emily took a breath. The hotel is being sold. Dana, the manager, is negotiating with a buyer who plans to gut the interior. They're bringing in consultants next month as a cover for layoffs, and then the sale will go through. I don't think you have much time. The silence on the other end stretched so long she thought the call had dropped. Mr. Chen? I'm here. His voice had changed, tightened. How do you know this? I overheard a conversation. The buyer's name is Voss. They were talking about you, too, about how you've been inquiring about the property and how you need to be kept in the dark until the sale is final. Another pause. Why are you telling me this, Miss Martinez? You don't know me. This could jeopardize your position. It was a fair question. Emily stared at the lobby around her, the chandelier, the marble floor, the Art Deco details that Harold Chen had drawn by hand 70 years ago. Because someone should care about what happens to this place. And I think you do. She heard him exhale slowly. My grandfather died 6 months before the Grandview opened. Heart attack. He was 47 years old. He had poured everything into this project. His savings, his time, his heart. My grandmother, Margaret, she told me he would stay up till 3 a.m, perfecting the drawings. He wanted to build something beautiful for her, something that would outlast them both. Emily's throat tightened. Margaret never remarried. She kept all his drawings, all his notes. She'd bring me here when I was a child, point out details he'd designed. Your grandfather made this, she'd say. Remember him. She passed away 3 years ago. That's when I started coming back. Once a month, same room, same dates. It's the closest I can get to understanding him. I'm so sorry, Emily said softly. I've been trying to buy the building for the past year. I wanted to restore it properly, turn it into a nonprofit heritage hotel, preserve my grandfather's work while making it sustainable. But I kept hitting walls.
The ownership structure is complicated. Multiple limited liability companies, offshore accounts. Every inquiry got deflected. Now I understand why. What are you going to do? I'm not sure yet, but Miss Martinez, Emily, thank you for this. You didn't have to take this risk. After they hung up, Emily sat in her car in the parking garage for a long time, staring at nothing. She'd crossed a line. There was no going back. What she didn't know was that Dana had security cameras in the back office hallway, and while they didn't record audio, they captured clear footage of Emily standing suspiciously still near the door during the Voss meeting, and Dana had already noticed. The next morning, Emily arrived to find Dana waiting at the front desk with a thin smile, and a security supervisor Emily had never seen before. "Emily, could you come to my office, please? We need to discuss something." The trap was set, and Emily had walked right into it.
Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Emily's legs felt unsteady if she followed Dana into the office. The security supervisor, a broad-shouldered man with a name tag reading Morrison, closed the door behind them with a soft click that sounded ominously final. Dana settled into her chair with practiced ease, gesturing for Emily to sit. "I'm going to be direct with you, Emily. We have a situation." Emily forced herself to meet Dana's gaze. "What kind of situation?" "Last Monday evening, around 7:15, you were standing outside my office door during a private meeting. The hallway cameras caught you there for approximately 4 minutes. Dana turned her computer monitor so Emily could see the frozen image, herself, clearly visible, standing motionless near the partially open door. "I was in the supply closet," Emily said, her mouth dry. "It's right there." "For 4 minutes? Completely still?" Dana's eyebrow arched. "Emily, I'm disappointed. I thought we had a relationship built on trust." The word trust, coming from Dana, felt like a slap. Emily's fear began curdling into something else, anger. "The following day, you accessed guest records outside your normal duties. Specifically, you pulled detailed information on Robert Chen. Address, contact information, booking history. Then yesterday evening, phone records show a 30-minute call from a Seattle number to your personal cell, the same area code as Mr. Chen's address." Emily's heart hammered. She hadn't considered they'd track her movements so thoroughly. "I found something of his. I was returning it. By making personal calls on your personal time about a guest? That's a privacy violation, Emily. A serious one." Dana leaned forward, her expression a careful blend of concern and disappointment. "I want to understand what's happening here. Did Mr. Chen approach you? Offer you something to spy on hotel business?" "What? No." The accusation was so absurd that Emily almost laughed. "I overheard your conversation about selling the hotel, about gutting the interior, about firing staff. I thought he should know. You thought you should interfere in confidential business matters that are absolutely none of your concern." Dana's voice sharpened. "You violated guest privacy, eavesdropped on private conversations, and contacted a guest with privileged information. Any one of those is grounds for immediate termination." Morrison shifted his weight, a silent reminder of his presence. Emily felt the walls closing in. This was it. 5 years of her life, gone. And for what? A building she'd never cared about until a week ago? A stranger's family legacy? But then she thought about Robert Chen's voice on the phone, the grief beneath his careful words. She thought about Harold Chen, staying up until 3 a.m, drawing perfect lines for someone he loved. She thought about all the guests who'd passed through these doors, all the small human moments that happened in this space. She thought about the fact that Dana was willing to destroy all of it for a paycheck. "Why didn't you tell the staff?" Emily asked quietly. "About the sale." Dana's expression flickered just for a moment with something that might have been guilt or annoyance at being questioned. "Because it would have created chaos, rumors, panic, people abandoning their posts. I was protecting the team. You were protecting your commission." The words came out before Emily could stop them. "That's what this is about, isn't it? You get a percentage of the sale. That's why you're keeping it quiet, why you're rushing it through, why you need the staff gone before anyone asks questions." "Careful, Emily." Dana's voice got cold. "You're making serious accusations." "Am I wrong?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Dana stood abruptly. "You're suspended, effective immediately. Morrison will escort you to collect your belongings. We'll conduct a full investigation, and you'll be notified of our decision within 72 hours. I suggest you consult with a lawyer about the non-disclosure agreement you signed when you were hired." The threat was clear. talk about this, and we'll sue you into oblivion." Emily stood on shaking legs. "This building deserves better than you. This building is a financial asset. Nothing more." Dana's expression was stone. "You're too young to understand how business works, Emily. Sentiment doesn't pay bills. Legacy doesn't generate returns. The Grandview has outlived its usefulness." Morrison opened the door, but Emily didn't move yet. Something had shifted in her. Maybe it was the adrenaline. Maybe it was 5 years of swallowed frustration finally finding its voice. "Harold Chen didn't build this place to generate returns. He built it for love, for beauty, for his wife Margaret. And his grandson has been coming here every month to feel close to him. This building holds 70 years of people's lives, proposals and anniversaries and business deals and quiet moments of peace. You're treating all of that like it's disposable. I'm treating it like an asset, which is what it is. Now get out before I call actual police." Emily walked past Morrison, down the familiar hallway to the front desk where she had spent so many hours. Her locker held the envelope with Harold Chen's blueprints. She tucked it carefully into her bag, along with the few personal items she had accumulated: a spare sweater, some tea bags, and a photo of her graduation that she had taped at the inside of the door years ago and never looked at since. The lobby felt different now. She noticed details she'd stopped seeing through the fog of routine. The way afternoon light came through the east windows and made the marble glow. The slight squeak of the revolving door's third rotation. The Art Deco pattern in the ceiling that echoed the motif in Harold Chen's drawings. This place was more than a job. It always had been. She had just forgotten. Morrison escorted her to her car with the impersonal efficiency of someone who did this regularly. As Emily drove away, she caught a glimpse at the Grandview's facade in her rearview mirror, stately, dignified, unaware of its uncertain future. She pulled over 2 blocks later and cried. Then she called Robert Chen. He answered on the second ring. "Emily? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called you. I don't know what to do." "I'm flying in tonight. Where are you?" 4 hours later, Emily sat in a coffee shop downtown, the envelope with the blueprints on the table between them. Robert Chen looked different than he did at the hotel, more animated, more present, as if stepping away from the hotel let him occupy his full self. "I spoke with an attorney this afternoon," he said, carefully removing the blueprints from the envelope. His hands were gentle, reverent. "The ownership structure is deliberately obscured, but with time we can penetrate it. The issue is time. Dana is rushing this sale because she knows that public scrutiny would complicate everything. So we need to create public scrutiny." "Exactly. But how?" "The historical designation protects the exterior, not the interior. And while there's sentimental value in my grandfather's work, that alone won't stop a sale to a private buyer." Emily thought hard. What if there was not just sentimental? What if there was documentary evidence that the hotel was designed with historically significant architectural features that would be destroyed in a garmentivation? There might be. But we'd need an architectural historian to review the plans, write an assessment, submit it for designation review. That's a 3-month process minimum. Robert ran his hand over the aged paper. "We don't have 3 months." They sat in silence, the enormity of the problem settling in. A small, independent hotel against corporate interests and legal maneuvering, one suspended receptionist, and one retired architect against well-funded buyers and motivated sellers. "Tell me about your grandmother, about Margaret," Emily said suddenly. "Why?" "Because your grandfather built that hotel for her. Because she spent years bringing you there to remember him. Because there's a story here bigger than property rights." Emily leaned forward. "People respond to stories. If we can make the public care about the Grandview the way Margaret cared, the way you care, maybe we can create enough pressure to slow down the sale down." Understanding dawned in Robert's eyes. "A media campaign?" "Not exactly. Something more grassroots, more personal." Emily's mind was racing now, pieces clicking into place. "Do you have photos of your grandmother at the hotel? Letters your grandfather wrote? Anything that humanizes this?" "Boxes of materials. Margaret kept everything. And I have Harold's original blueprints, the ones with his handwritten notes. His dedication to her." Emily's excitement was building. "What if we created an exhibit right there in the hotel lobby? Showed people the human beings behind this building, made them fall in love with the story before Dana can finalize the sale." "Dana would never allow it." "Dana suspended me, not banned me from the premises. I'm still technically employed pending investigation, and you're a guest with a monthly reservation." Emily smiled for the first time in days. "Room 314, always."
Robert smiled back slowly. This is either brilliant or completely insane. Probably both. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Robert would check into the hotel the following day, not as usual third Tuesday, but early. He would request a meeting space for a private historical documentation project. It wasn't technically a lie. Emily would come as his research assistant. Again, not technically a lie. While in the hotel, they'd quietly set up a small display in the lobby library nook, the space that was never used, that no one paid attention to. Photos of Harold and Margaret Chen,
Excerpts from letters, copies of the blueprints with explanations of the architectural significance, a small placard inviting guests to learn about the building's history. We need to be subtle, Robert warned. If Dana realizes what we're doing, she'll shut it down immediately. Then we'll make it look like a guest amenity. Historical information for interested visitors. Hotels do that all the time. And if it works, if people start paying attention, then we document everything. Film guests reacting to the story, collect their testimonials about what the hotel means to them, build a case that this place matters to people. Emily felt more alive than she had in years. And we send all of it to the Historical Preservation Board, to local news outlets, to anyone who will listen. Make it public enough and messy enough that Voss and Dana have to slow down. Robert studied her across the table. Why are you doing this, Emily? You lost your job. You could walk away. It was the same question he'd asked on the phone. Emily thought about all the versions of her answer. Because it's right. Because Dana deserves it. Because someone should care. All true, but not complete. Because I've spent 5 years sleepwalking, going through the motions, feeling invisible, and then you asked me if I wondered about the stories buildings hold, and suddenly I was awake again. I was curious. I cared about something. She met his eyes. This isn't just about saving a building. It's about remembering that ordinary things can matter, that ordinary people can matter. Robert nodded slowly. My grandfather would have liked you. Yeah? He believed architecture should serve human dignity, that spaces should make people feel valued, not diminished. Robert carefully returned the blueprints to the envelope. He'd be glad someone's fighting for that, even if it's a long shot. Especially because it's a long shot. They shook hands across the table, two unlikely allies bound by conviction and stubbornness, and the ghost of a man who drew perfect lines at 3 a.m. What neither of them knew was that Dana had installed new security cameras in the lobby that very afternoon, motion-activated, high-definition, feeding directly to her computer. The trap was evolving, and they were about to walk right into the next one. When Robert Chen checked into the Grandview the next morning, requesting the business center for his historical documentation project, Dana smiled warmly and approved it immediately. Of course, Mr. Chen, we're delighted to accommodate your research. Take all the time you need. She even offered him extended access to storage rooms if needed. So helpful, so accommodating, so ready to catch them in the act and press charges for trespassing and theft. Emily met Robert in the hotel parking garage at 10 a.m., her stomach tight with nerves. She'd barely slept, running through every possible scenario of what could go wrong. Getting arrested for trespassing topped the list, followed closely by humiliating failure and proving Dana right about her incompetence. But when Robert opened his trunk to reveal 3 carefully packed boxes of materials, her doubt wavered. He lifted out a framed photograph, a young couple on their wedding day, 1950s fashion and luminous smiles. Harold and Margaret, Robert said softly. 6 months before he started designing the Grandview. The woman in the photo had Margaret's eyes, bright with intelligence and warmth. The man beside her looked at her like she'd hung the moon. Emily understood, viscerally, why someone would stay up until 3 a.m. drawing perfect lines for a person who looked at them like that. Let's do this, she said. They entered through the main entrance, Emily fighting the surreal feeling of being both insider and outsider in a space she knew intimately. The current receptionist, Kayla, relatively new, barely glanced up from her computer. Can I help you? Robert Chen, checking in. I have a reservation and a meeting room booked. While Kayla processed the check-in, Emily scanned the lobby. Mid-morning, moderate activity. A handful of guests in the sitting area, the breakfast service winding down, housekeeping carts rolling toward the elevators. The library nook sat empty, as always. Perfect. Dana's office door was closed. Even more perfect. Robert received his key card and the business center access code. Thank you. We'll be working on a historical documentation project for the next few days. I appreciate the accommodation. No problem. Let me know if I can help. Kayla's smile was pleasant but distracted. She had no idea she'd just granted them access to subvert her boss's plans. They carried the first box to the library nook, moving with casual purpose. Emily's heart hammered, but she kept her expression neutral. Just a guest and his assistant setting up a work project. Nothing unusual. The library nook was a small alcove off the main lobby, with built-in bookshelves filled with donated novels, 2 leather armchairs, and a rarely used side table. Perfect for reading. Even better for an impromptu exhibition. Robert unpacked materials while Emily arranged furniture. The wedding photo went on the side table, propped against a stack of books. Beside it, a copy of Harold Chen's architectural license, dated 1949. Then a letter, carefully preserved in an archival sleeve. My dearest Margaret, the Grandview project was approved today. They chose my design. I can hardly believe it. Our vision made real. Every room will whisper your name. Every detail will honor the beauty you've brought to my life. When it stands complete, I'll take you there and show you what love looks like rendered in steel and stone. Forever yours, Harold. Emily felt her throat tighten reading it. Robert arranged additional photos. Harold at his drafting table, surrounded by plans. Margaret standing in front of a construction site, the Grandview's frame rising behind her. Harold and Margaret with a young child, presumably Robert's father. This was taken the week before he died. Robert told my grandmother, the building was 90% complete. He just needed to see the finishing touches installed. He never got the chance. Emily placed the final piece, a carefully mounted excerpt from the original blueprints, showing the lobby ceiling detail with Harold's handwritten note, Art Deco pattern, represents eternal love, infinite connection, for M. She stepped back to assess their work. It wasn't elaborate, but it told a story. A man who loved, a woman who was loved, a building born from that devotion. Any guest who paused here would feel it. We need a placard, Emily said, something inviting people to look. Robert pulled out a small printed card from his bag. He had prepared it the night before. The Grandview Hotel, a love story. In 1951, architect Harold Chen designed this building as a testament to his wife Margaret. Every detail, from the ceiling moldings to the ironwork, was drawn by hand with meticulous care. Harold passed away before seeing his vision completed, but Margaret ensured his legacy endured. This exhibition honors their story and the human heart behind these walls. Visitors are invited to share their own Grandview memories in the journal provided. A blank leather journal sat beside the cart. Emily opened it to the first page where Robert had written, "What does the Grandview Hotel mean to you?" "Now we wait," Robert said quietly. They retreated to the business center, a small room with a conference table and office supplies, where they could monitor the lobby through the glass door without being obvious. Emily felt like a nervous director on opening night, wondering if anyone would show up. For the first hour, nothing happened. Guests passed by the nook without noticing. Housekeeping came through. The mail carrier dropped off packages. Normal hotel operations continued around their small act of rebellion. Then, an elderly woman in a purple cardigan paused near the nook. She leaned closer to read the placard, then picked up the wedding photo. Her hand went to her mouth. She stood there for 5 minutes, reading every word, studying every image. Finally, she opened the journal and wrote something, her hand moving slowly across the page. Emily and Robert exchanged glances. One person. It was a start. The woman finished writing and carefully closed the journal. As she walked toward the elevator, Emily saw tears on her cheeks. 20 minutes later, a middle-aged couple discovered the exhibit. They read the letter aloud to each other, the man's voice catching on "Forever Yours." They wrote in the journal together, then took a photo of the display with their phone. By lunchtime, 7 people had stopped. By mid-afternoon, 15. Each one spent time with the materials, each one wrote something in the journal. Some took photos, some stood silently, absorbed in the story.
Emily snuck over during a quiet moment to read the journal entries. My husband proposed to me in this lobby in 1987. We've been married 36 years. Thank you for reminding me that love built this place. Susan R. I'm an architect. This is why I do what I do. Harold Chen understood. David M. I stayed here the night before my mother's funeral. The staff was so kind. This building held my grief. I won't forget. Anonymous. My wife and I spent our anniversary here every year for 20 years. She passed last spring. Coming here helps me feel close to her. Please don't let this place change. Richard T. Page after page of human connection, memories anchored to this space, lives touched by Harold Chen's vision in ways he could never have anticipated. Emily felt tears prick her eyes. This was working. Not in a dramatic, immediate way, but in something deeper. People were remembering that buildings could hold meaning, that spaces mattered, that architecture was more than just walls and floors. We need to document this, Emily whispered to Robert. Video people's reactions, record them talking about what this place means to them. Robert nodded. I'll be subtle, phone video, casual. Over the next 2 hours, he approached guests who lingered at the exhibit, explaining he was the architect's grandson doing a documentary project. Most people were happy to share. A businessman talked about closing his first major deal at the Grandview's restaurant. A young woman described bringing her grandmother here every birthday. An artist mentioned sketching the lobby's ironwork for inspiration. Robert captured it all: voices, faces, emotions. Evidence that the Grandview mattered to people beyond its property value. By 5 p.m., they'd collected testimonials from 12 guests, and the journal had over 30 entries, and they'd only just begun. Dana emerged from her office at 5:30, making her usual rounds. Emily ducked into the business center, heart pounding, but watched through the glass door. Dana walked past the nook without a glance, too busy checking her phone, reviewing paperwork. She didn't notice the small gathering of people around the exhibit, didn't see a guest carefully photographing Harold's letter. Emily allowed herself a small breath of relief. They'd made it through day one. We should add more materials tomorrow, Robert said, reviewing the video footage on his phone. Letters from guests, historical photos of the neighborhood showing how the hotel fit into the community. Make it bigger. Agreed, but we need to stay under the radar. Emily chewed her lip. Dana will notice eventually, and when she does,
We'll have enough documentation that shutting us down will only prove our point. Robert's expression was determined. This is guerrilla preservation, Emily. We're not going to win through official channels. We're going to win by making people care. They returned to the Nook to pack up the most valuable items overnight. The original photos, Harold's letter. The journal stayed, along with copies of materials and the placard. Tomorrow they'd expand. As Emily prepared to leave through the front entrance, the elderly woman in the purple cardigan approached her. "Excuse me, dear, are you part of this?" She gestured toward the exhibit. Emily hesitated, unsure how to answer. I helped set it up." The woman's eyes were warm. "Thank you. My late husband was a builder, not fancy like this Harold Chen, but he understood about putting love into your work. Seeing this reminded me of him." She squeezed Emily's hand. "Don't let them destroy this place. It matters." She walked away before Emily could respond, leaving her standing in the lobby with the weight of those words. It matters. Emily drove home in a daze, barely remembering the route. She ordered takeout she didn't eat, stared at her laptop without seeing it, and finally crawled into bed at 11, only to lie awake staring at the ceiling. They'd started something. She could feel it. A small spark that might grow into something bigger, or might be extinguished the moment Dana noticed. Her phone buzzed at midnight. Text from Robert. "The hotel just posted about the exhibit on their social media. Someone from staff. Check it out." Emily's heart leapt. She opened Instagram and found the Grandview Hotel account. A new post from 2 hours ago. Photo of the exhibit, beautifully lit. Caption, "Did you know the Grandview was designed as a love letter? Architect Harold Chen created every detail for his wife Margaret in 1951. Learn their story in our lobby library Nook. Share your own Grandview memories. Hashtag Grandview Hotel, hashtag love story,
#architectural history. 300 likes already, dozens of comments, and the account that posted it belonged to Kayla, the receptionist. Emily called Robert immediately. "Did you see this?" "Just now. I didn't ask her to post it." "She did it on her own." Emily's voice shook with a mixture of excitement and fear. "This is going public faster than we planned. Is that bad?" "I don't know, but Dana's definitely going to see it." They were right to worry. At 7 a.m., Dana saw the post, and at 7:15, she called an emergency staff meeting. Emily got a text from a coworker still at the hotel. "Dana's freaking out. Emergency meeting, says someone's running an unauthorized campaign, wants to know who's responsible. This about you?" Emily stared at her phone. This was it. The moment Dana connected the dots and came after them with everything she had. She texted Robert, "Dana knows. Brace yourself." His response came instantly. "Good. Let's make sure everyone else knows too." By the time Emily arrived at the hotel at 9 a.m., she was still technically suspended but had decided to show up anyway. The lobby was bustling, not just with regular guests, but with people who'd seen the Instagram post and come specifically to see the exhibit. A local blogger was taking photos, a journalist from the neighborhood newspaper was interviewing guests, 3 women from the Historical Society were examining the blueprints with magnifying glasses, murmuring excitedly about design details. And Dana stood in the center of it all, her face a mask of barely controlled fury. She spotted Emily immediately. "You, my office, now." Emily walked past the crowd, past Robert, who gave her an encouraging nod, past the exhibit that had taken on a life of its own, into Dana's office where Morrison, the security guard, waited with arms crossed. Dana closed the door with controlled precision. "I don't know whether to be impressed or appalled by your audacity." "I'd go with impressed," Emily said, surprised by her own calm. "You taught me well. Know your market, create demand, leverage assets." "This isn't a game." Dana's voice rose. "You're trespassing, you're interfering with business operations, you're creating a PR nightmare." "I'm helping people remember what this place means. That's not a nightmare, that's humanity." "You're suspended. You have no authority to be here, let alone to create unauthorized exhibitions." "Robert Chan created it. He's a paying guest with every right to use hotel facilities. I'm just his research assistant." Emily met Dana's glare steadily. "And before you threaten me with lawyers again, you should know that Robert's attorney has already filed a formal inquiry into the ownership structure of this hotel. All those LLCs you've been hiding behind, they're being investigated." Dana's face paled slightly. "And that journalist in the lobby? She's from the Tribune. Robert contacted her yesterday, told her about a beloved historical hotel being secretly sold to developers, about a manager rushing through a sale before the community could respond, about staff being fired to cover it up. She's very interested in the story." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Emily pulled out her phone and showed Dana the email chain Robert had forwarded her. Messages with the Historical Society, the Tribune, a local architecture preservation group, all expressing concern and requesting information. Dana stared at the phone, her jaw tight. "This is extortion." "No, this is transparency. You wanted to do this quietly, out of sight. We're just turning on the lights." "The sale is legal. You can't stop it." "Maybe not, but we can slow it down enough that Voss gets nervous and walks away. Buyers like him don't want controversy. They want clean, easy transactions. This," Emily gestured toward the lobby, "this is messy. This is people caring. This is exactly what Voss told you he wanted to avoid." Dana's hand trembled slightly as she set down her phone. For the first time, Emily saw actual cracks in her composure. "Why are you doing this? The hotel is going to be sold regardless. Fighting it just makes you look foolish." "Because Harold Chen built something beautiful and you're treating it like garbage. Because Robert Chen has been grieving here for 3 years and deserves better. Because those people out there have memories tied to this place and they matter." Emily's voice strengthened. "And because someone has to care, Dana. Someone has to say that not everything is for sale.
Finally, Dana spoke, her voice low and hard. "Get out of this hotel. If you're here in 5 minutes, I'm calling the police for trespassing." "Fine." Emily turned to go, then paused at the door. "But, Dana, this isn't over. We're just getting started." She walked out with her head high, past Morrison, through the lobby where the crowd had grown even larger. Robert caught her eye and mouthed, "Okay?" She nodded and kept walking, out the revolving door, into the morning sunlight. Her phone rang before she reached her car. Robert. "Emily, you need to see this. The Instagram post went viral. It's been shared 3,000 times. Local news wants to do a story. The mayor's office called the Historical Society asking about the hotel's status." His voice was breathless with excitement. "We did it. We made people pay attention." Emily leaned against her car, suddenly exhausted. "Dana kicked me out, threatened to call the police." "Let her. The exhibit stays. I'm a guest. She can't remove my property without cause. And with this many people watching, any move she makes against us looks bad." "Voss will still try to buy it." "Probably, but now he has to contend with public opinion, media scrutiny, and a very motivated historical society. The sale might still happen, Emily, but it won't be the gut renovation he wanted. There's too much attention now." It wasn't a complete victory, but it wasn't a defeat either. They'd shifted the battlefield. "What now?" Emily asked. "Now we keep building momentum. I'm holding a public talk at the hotel tomorrow night. The story behind the Grandview. Open invitation. We'll pack the lobby, get more testimonials, show the community what's at stake." Robert paused. "Will you help me?" Emily looked back at the Grandview's facade, stately, dignified, holding 70 years of human moments within its walls. Harold Chen's love letter, Margaret's legacy, all the small lives that had intersected with this space. "Yeah, I'll help." What Emily didn't know was that Dana's panic had just begun, because Voss had seen the viral post too, and he was not happy about his clean transaction turning into a public spectacle. At exactly 10:15 a.m., Dana received a call that would change everything. "Miss Shaw, this is Malcolm Voss. We need to discuss the significant complications you've created for our agreement."
The public talk was scheduled for Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Robert had reserved the hotel's small conference room, capacity 40 people, but by Wednesday afternoon, Emily knew they'd need more space. RSVPs had exceeded 200. The Historical Society was bringing members. Architecture students from the local university were coming. Former employees who'd worked at the Grandview decades ago had seen the viral post and were making trips from across the state. What had started as a small act of preservation had become something bigger, a community rallying around a shared memory. Robert moved the event to the lobby itself. "If they're going to kick us out, let them do it in front of everyone." Emily helped him set up a microphone and portable speaker system. They positioned the exhibit materials for visibility. The journal now held over 200 entries, pages thick with handwriting and emotion. Robert had framed some of the most moving testimonials and added them to the display. Dana watched all the preparations with a glacial expression, but said nothing. She couldn't. Not with a Tribune reporter doing daily check-ins. Not with the Historical Society president asking pointed questions about renovation plans. Not with social media buzzing about the architect's grandson fighting to save his grandfather's legacy. But Emily knew the silence wouldn't last. Thursday morning, she arrived early to help with final setup. The lobby was already busy. Guests taking selfies with the exhibit. A local TV crew getting B-roll footage. Robert giving an interview to an architecture podcast. The energy felt electric, purposeful. Kayla approached Emily hesitantly. "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" They stepped into the library nook, now transformed into a shrine to the hotel's history. Kayla looked nervous. "I'm the one who made that Instagram post. I didn't ask permission, the story was so beautiful, and I thought people should know." "You did the right thing," Emily assured her. "But Dana pulled me into her office yesterday. She was really angry. She said I overstepped, that I should have cleared it with management first." Kayla's voice dropped, but then she said something weird. She asked if you'd told me to post it, like she was trying to build a case that you orchestrated everything. Emily's stomach tightened. "What did you tell her?" "The truth, that I did it on my own because I thought it was cool." Kayla bit her lip. "But Emily, I think she's planning something. She's been on the phone constantly, and she keeps printing documents and locking them in her desk. Something is coming." "Thanks for the warning."
After Kayla left, Emily found Robert in the business center reviewing his notes for the evening talk. "Dana's up to something," she told him about the conversation. Robert frowned. "My attorney called this morning. The ownership inquiry hit a wall. Whoever structured this corporation network did it very carefully. It's not illegal, just incredibly opaque. It'll take months to fully untangled." "We don't have months." "No." Robert set down his papers. "Which is why tonight matters so much. We need to make this personal for as many people as possible. Once it's about human beings and not just property, it becomes much harder for Voss to proceed without looking like a villain." At 6:30, people started arriving. By 6:45, the lobby was packed. The hotel had to open the adjoining conference room and set up a video feed. Staff brought in extra chairs. Emily recognized faces from the journal entries. Susan, who'd gotten engaged here. Richard, who'd spent anniversaries here with his late wife. The elderly woman in the purple cardigan. The local news crew set up cameras. The Tribune reporter had brought a photographer. And standing in the back, trying to look inconspicuous, was a man Emily recognized from the office security footage, Malcolm Voss. She nudged Robert and pointed. He followed her gaze and nodded grimly. "Good. Let him see what he's trying to destroy." At 7 p.m., Robert stepped up to the microphone. The crowd quieted. "Thank you all for coming. My name is Robert Chen. My grandfather Harold Chen designed this building in 1951 as a gift for my grandmother, Margaret. What I want to share with you tonight is not just their love story, but the story of how buildings hold our humanity." He spoke for 20 minutes, his voice steady and clear. He told him about Harold's stand up until 3 a.m. perfecting drawings, about Margaret standing in front of the construction site, watching their dream take shape, about Harold's heart attack 6 months before completion, about Margaret bringing young Robert here to show him his grandfather's legacy. "Every time I check into room 314, I'm trying to understand something. How do you honor someone who died before you were born? How do you keep their memory alive when the world keeps moving forward?" He paused, emotion thick in his voice. "I thought I was alone in that question, but then I read your journal entries." He held up the leather journal. Susan wrote about her husband's proposal in this lobby. Richard wrote about 20 anniversaries spent here with his late wife. David wrote about being inspired to become an architect after visiting this building. Page after page of lives touched by my grandfather's work in ways he never could have imagined. Robert's voice strengthened. This hotel isn't just bricks and mortar. It's a repository of human experience. It's where grief found comfort, where love was celebrated, where ordinary people had extraordinary moments. And right now, there are plans to gut this building, to strip away everything my grandfather created and turn it into something generic and profitable. A murmur rang through the crowd. Voss shifted in the back, his expression unreadable. "I'm not naive," Robert continued. "I understand that buildings get sold, renovated, repurposed. But I'm asking, begging, that if this place must change hands, let it change to someone who understands its value beyond dollars, someone who will preserve what makes it special, someone who recognizes that architecture is more than shelter, it's memory made tangible." He invited people to share their own stories. Susan came forward and talked about a proposal, her voice breaking as she described how her husband had hidden the ring in a rose from the lobby vase. Richard spoke about his 20 anniversaries here with his late wife, how they'd lie in bed counting the details. A woman named Jennifer described having her baby shower here 25 years ago. Her daughter was now pregnant and she wanted to host a shower for her at the same venue. Story after story, each one adding weight to the argument that this place mattered beyond its market value. Emily watched Voss's face throughout. He maintained his carefully neutral expression, but his eyes kept moving, counting the crowd, assessing the cameras, calculating the PR implications. When the testimonials ended, Robert opened the floor for questions. Hand shot up immediately. What happens if the sale goes through anyway? Will the new owner honor the building's history? How can we help? Robert answered each question honestly. Yes, the sale might proceed. Yes, legal avenues are limited. Yes, public pressure is their best tool. Then a woman in the back raised her hand. "I have a question for Mr. Voss." The crowd turned. Voss looked startled, caught off guard. The woman, late 50s, wearing a business suit, stepped forward. "I'm Linda Zhao, City Council member through this district. Mr. Voss, I understand you're the prospective buyer. What are your plans for this property?" Voss' jaw tightened. "This is neither the time nor the place." "I disagree," Linda said firmly. "These people deserve to know what you intend to do with a building that clearly means so much to the community. Do you plan to preserve the interior or gut it as rumored?" The crowd went silent, all eyes on Voss. He looked trapped, angry, but aware that refusing to answer would look terrible in front of cameras.
My plans are to revitalize an underutilized property into something economically sustainable for the neighborhood. That's not an answer, Linda pressed. Will you preserve the architectural details, the Art Deco elements, the features Harold Shin designed? Historical designation protects the facade. Beyond that, interior renovations are at the owner's discretion. So you will gut it, Linda said to Voices Steel. You'll destroy 70 years of history and community memory for condos or office space. I'll be creating housing and economic development. We have plenty of generic housing. We don't have another Grandview hotel. Linda turned to address the crowd. I'm proposing an emergency resolution to expand the historical designation to include interior elements. It'll require a public hearing and architectural review, which will take months during which no major renovations can proceed. The crowd erupted in applause. Voss's face went red. He pushed through the crowd towards the exit, but a Tribune reporter intercepted him with questions he refused to answer. Emily and Robert exchanged stunned looks. They hadn't expected this. A city council member publicly challenging the buyer, threatening to tie up the project in bureaucracy. Linda Zhao approached them after Voss stormed out. That was well done, she told Robert. You made it impossible for anyone to proceed without looking heartless. The expanded designation might not pass, but the threat of it will make Voss's investors nervous. Uncertainty kills development deals.
Thank you, Robert said, shaking her hand. We weren't sure anyone in official positions would care. My parents owned a restaurant in this neighborhood for 40 years. They used to book rooms here for out-of-town family. Linda smiled sadly. I have memories in this building too, and I'm tired of watching developers erase history for profit. The event wound down around 9 p.m., but people lingered, taking photos, adding to the journal, talking among themselves. Emily overheard conversations about organizing a petition, about contacting other council members, about starting a fundraising campaign to counteroffer Voss. The spark had become a flame. Dana emerged from her office just as the crowd began dispersing. Her face was ashen. She walked straight to Robert. Mr. Chen, I need you to remove this exhibit immediately. You're creating a liability for the hotel. I'm a paying guest, displaying historical materials in a public space. What liability? You're interfering with the private business transaction. I'm exercising my free speech rights. Robert's voice was calm but immovable. If you want me to remove my property, you'll need to evict me as a guest, which, given tonight's turnout and media presence, would look quite bad for the hotel. Dana's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Emily thought she might actually hit Robert. Instead, she turned and walked back to her office, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. That went well, Emily murmured. Better than I expected. Linda Zhao's intervention, that was a game changer. They spent another hour breaking down the audio equipment and reorganizing the exhibit. The journal now held over 300 entries. Someone had left a beautiful pencil sketch of the lobby. Another person had taped a photo from their grandparents' 1960s wedding reception held in the hotel ballroom. Emily felt overwhelmed by it all. The emotion, the momentum, the sense of being part of something larger than herself. She'd started this journey feeling invisible, insignificant. Now she was standing at the center of a community movement. You should go home, Robert told her gently. You've been here since 7 a.m. I'm okay. Emily, he met her eyes. Whatever happens next, you've already made a difference. You woke people up. That matters, regardless of how the sale resolves. She nodded, suddenly exhausted. What do you think will happen? Honestly, I think Voss will walk away. Too much scrutiny, too much risk. But Dana might find another buyer. Someone more willing to preserve the interior, but still fundamentally changing what this place is. Robert sighed. We can't control the outcome. We can only control the fight. Emily drove home in a daze, her mind replaying the evening. Susan's tears, Richard's quiet dignity, Linda Zhao's fierce advocacy. All these people coming together because they cared, because a building had given them something worth remembering.
She fell asleep almost immediately, too tired for worry or what-ifs. Her phone woke her at 3 a.m. Robert's name on the screen. "Emily." His voice was tight with urgency. "The hotel's on fire." She sat bolt upright, adrenaline spiking. "What?" "Fire department just called me. Small fire in the basement near the archives. They've contained it, no major damage, but Emily..." He paused. "It started in the storage room where they keep old documents. The fire marshal thinks it was deliberately set." Emily's blood went cold. "Dana, we don't know that. Who else would want to destroy the hotel's historical records right after we've created all this public attention?" "The police are investigating, but Emily, if this was arson, if Dana or someone else tried to sabotage the preservation effort," Robert's voice was grim, "this just got much more serious." Emily was already getting dressed, grabbing her keys. "I'm coming to the hotel. The fire marshal won't let you in. I don't care. I'll wait in the parking lot if I have to." She drove through empty 3 a.m. streets, her mind racing. If Dana had actually committed arson, she'd crossed the line from unethical and to criminal. But would she really go that far? Risk jail time over a property sale? Then Emily remembered Dana's face when Voss stormed out, the fear beneath the anger. If Voss walked away, Dana lost her commission, maybe lost her job for mismanaging the situation. She'd put everything into this sale, burned bridges, alienated staff. Desperate people did desperate things. The Grandview's parking lot was filled with fire trucks and police cars, lights flashing in the darkness. Emily parked at the edge and walked as close as security would allow. The front entrance was blocked, but she could see firefighters moving inside with equipment. Robert found her near the barrier. They evacuated all the guests to the hotel across the street. No injuries, thank God, but the fire destroyed most of the archival storage room. "The materials we used for the exhibit? Those are safe. I had them in my room." Robert's expression was haunted. But decades of hotel records, old guest logs, historical photos that weren't digitized? Gone. If someone was trying to erase the hotel's documented history, they succeeded. A detective approached them, a tired-looking woman in her 40s with intelligent eyes. "Mr. Chen, I'm Detective Williams. I need to ask you some questions about the materials you've been storing at the hotel." They sat in Robert's car while Emily waited outside, pacing. 45 minutes later, Robert emerged looking drained. "They want to know if anyone had made threats about the exhibit, if we'd had confrontations with staff." I rubbed my face. I told them about Dana's reaction, about Voss walking out. They're investigating everyone. "Do they think it's arson?" "The fire marshal found evidence of accelerant. Someone definitely started this deliberately." Robert looked at the hotel, its facade lit by emergency lights. "Emily, what kind of person burns down history to make a profit?" They stayed until dawn, watching firefighters finish their work, watching investigators come and go, watching the sun rise over a building that had survived 70 years only to be attacked by someone who saw it as nothing more than an obstacle. At 7 a.m., Dana arrived at the scene. She looked shocked, horrified, and Emily thought genuinely upset. Either she was an excellent actress or she hadn't known about the fire. "What happened?" Dana demanded of the fire marshal. "Is there structural damage? Can we reopen?" "Minor smoke damage to the first floor, significant damage to the basement storage area. We'll need to do a full structural assessment before you can allow guests back in." The fire marshal's tone was professional but cool. "And Detective Williams wants to speak with you about security footage from last night." Dana's face went pale. "Security footage? Your cameras should have captured anyone entering the basement area. We'll need all recordings from 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. Something flickered across Dana's expression. Panic, quickly suppressed. "Of course. Whatever you need." As Dana walked toward the hotel with the detective, Robert grabbed Emily's arm. "Did you see her face? She knows something. Or she did something." They watched through the lobby windows as Dana unlocked her office and turned on her computer. Minutes passed, then raised voices. Dana and Detective Williams in heated conversation. Dana gesturing emphatically, shaking her head. Finally, Dana emerged from the office, followed by the detective and a uniformed officer. She was in handcuffs. Emily's jaw dropped. "Oh my God!" They rushed to the entrance as Dana was being led to a police car, still protesting. "This is a mistake. I would never—" "Ma'am, we can discuss it at the station," Detective Williams said firmly. "You have the right to remain silent." Robert caught the detective's attention. "What happened?" The security footage was erased. All of it from 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. Ms. Shaw claims it was a system malfunction, but our tech specialist says it was manually deleted from her office computer. Williams' expression was hard. That's obstruction of justice, and that makes her a prime suspect for the arson. They watched the police car drive away with Dana in the back, her face a mask of disbelief and fury. Emily felt the strange mixture of vindication and sickness. She'd wanted Dana to face her consequences, but not this way, not with criminal charges and potential prison time. "What now?" she asked Robert quietly. "Now the sale is definitely off. No buyer will touch a property under criminal investigation." Robert looked at the Grandview, wounded but still standing, and now we figure out what comes next. But as the sun rose higher and the media trucks began arriving for the breaking news story about suspected arson at a historic hotel, Emily noticed something that made her blood run cold. In Dana's rush to be taken away, her office door had been left unlocked, and through the window she could see documents spread across the desk. Documents with familiar letterhead. The real story behind the Grandview sale was about to emerge, and it was far more complicated than anyone had imagined.
Detective Williams had stationed an officer outside Dana's office, pending a warrant to search the premises, but the door remained visibly ajar, offering a tantalizing glimpse of the chaos inside. Emily stood at the lobby's edge, staring at those scattered documents, fighting the urge to walk in and look. "Don't even think about it," Robert murmured beside her. "That's a crime scene now. I just want to understand. Why would Dana burn her own hotel's archives? What could possibly be worth that?" Before Robert could answer, Detective Williams emerged from the office with a file box. She spotted them and walked over. "Mr. Chen, Miss Martinez, I'm going to need formal statements from both of you about the events leading up to tonight." "Of course," Robert said, "whatever helps." Williams studied them both with those sharp eyes. "Off the record, you two kicked over a hornet's nest. Miss Shaw was involved in something much bigger than a simple property sale. We're finding evidence of fraud, embezzlement, possibly conspiracy. The deeper we dig, the worse it gets." Emily's stomach dropped. Embezzlement? Hotel funds being siphoned into shell corporations over the past 18 months. Maintenance budgets that were approved but never spent. The money went elsewhere. Miss Shaw wasn't just facilitating a sale, she was actively devaluing the property to make it seem like a failing business, all while pocketing the difference. William shook her head. "Your little exhibition probably saved this place from being sold under false pretenses to a buyer who thought he was getting a good deal on a distressed property." Emily felt dizzy. "So, the efficiency consultants? The planned layoffs? All feed her, make the hotel look unprofitable, justify the low sale price, and Miss Shaw walks away with both a commission and whatever she skimmed." Williams pulled out her notebook. "We found correspondence between her and Voss. He knew about the devaluation scheme. That's why he was willing to pay her asking price. It was already artificially low." Robert's face had gone hard. "They were both defrauding the actual property owners." "Correct. The ownership is a consortium of investors, a retirement fund, actually. Teachers, municipal workers, people who invested decades ago and have been collecting modest returns. They had no idea their asset was being systematically looted." Williams closed her notebook. "Your preservation campaign brought scrutiny Dana couldn't afford. That's why she panicked. The arson was a last-ditch attempt to destroy evidence of how much she'd neglected the property." Emily thought about all those times Dana had talked about hard business decisions and economic reality. It had all been cover for theft. "What happens to the hotel now?" Robert asked.
The ownership consortium has been notified. They'll need to appoint new management and assess the damage, both from the fire and from the financial malfeasance. Williams glanced back at the building. But between you and me, you two gave them a reason to fight for this place instead of just cutting losses. That exhibition showed them what they really own. After Williams left to continue her investigation, Emily and Robert stood in the parking lot watching the sun fully rise. Exhaustion pulled at Emily's bones, but her mind was too wired to even consider sleep. "I can't believe it," she said quietly. "Dana was stealing from the hotel for over a year. All those times she talked about budget constraints, about having to make tough choices. She was creating the constraints artificially." Robert's voice was bitter, letting the property deteriorate so she could justify selling it cheap. "My grandfather built something beautiful, and she turned it into a fraud scheme." "The teacher's retirement fund," Emily added, the human cost sinking in. Real people's retirement money was being stolen. They were silent for a long moment, processing the magnitude of what they'd uncovered. Not just a property sale, but systematic financial crime affected innocent investors. Emily's phone buzzed. Text from Kayla. "What is happening? Police everywhere. Dana arrested, hotel closed. Are you okay?" She replied, "Long story. We're okay. We'll explain soon." Within minutes, her phone exploded with messages. Former coworkers, guests who had attended the public talk, even the woman in the purple cardigan somehow got her number. Everyone wanted to know what happened, if the hotel would survive, what came next. "We need to make a statement," Robert said, reading his own flood of messages. "People are scared and confused. They deserve to know the truth." They crafted a joint message and posted it to the Grandview social media accounts. Kayla gave them access remotely. Emily wrote from the heart. The Grandview Hotel Community. Early this morning, a fire damaged the basement storage area of our beloved hotel. Thankfully, no one was hurt, and the structure remains sound. What we've learned since then is that this fire was part of a much larger betrayal. Former manager Dana Shaw has been arrested on charges of arson and embezzlement. For over a year, she systematically stole from the hotel while arranging a fraudulent sale that would have destroyed the building's interior and cheated its rightful owners, a teacher's retirement fund. Your voices, your stories, your fight to preserve this place brought enough scrutiny to expose these crimes. You saved the Grandview not just from demolition, but from corruption. We don't know yet what comes next for the hotel, but we know this. Harold Chen built something meant to endure, and because you cared enough to fight for it, it will. With gratitude, Robert Chen and Emily Martinez. The post went viral within hours. News outlets picked up the story. Historic hotel saved by community activism and grandson's devotion. The arson and fraud allegations made headlines locally and then nationally. The Grandview became a symbol of community resistance against corporate greed and historic preservation in action. By afternoon, Emily and Robert were fielding interview requests from everyone: local news, NPR, architecture magazines, true crime podcasts. They declined most, agreeing to only speak with the Tribune reporter who'd covered the story from the beginning. The interview took place in a coffee shop, both of them running on fumes and adrenaline. The reporter, Sarah Chen, no relation to Robert, though she joked about it, had done her homework. The Teachers Retirement Fund has issued a statement, Sarah told them. They're grateful the fraud was discovered before the sale completed. They estimate Dana Shaw stole nearly $2 million over 18 months. Emily felt sick. $2 million that should have been maintaining the building, paying fair wages, investing in the property.
Instead, it went into Dana's pockets and inflated the property's apparent desperation, Sarah continued. But here's the interesting twist. The Retirement Fund Board is now asking if Robert Chen would be interested in purchasing the hotel legitimately. Robert's head snapped up. What? They want a buyer who will preserve the heritage value while making it financially sustainable. You've been trying to buy it for a year. You're Harold Chen's grandson, and you just led a successful preservation campaign. Sarah smiled. From their perspective, you're the ideal owner. Emily watched Robert process this, emotions flickering across his face. Hope, fear, overwhelm, possibility. I'd need to see the actual financials, he said slowly. Understand what needs repair, what was neglected, what's salvageable. And I'd need to consult with preservation experts about proper restoration. But you're interested, Sarah pressed. Robert looked at Emily, then back at Sarah. Yes, I'm interested.
The interview continued for another hour, covering everything from Harold Chen's original vision to the viral Instagram post to the dramatic arrest. Sarah was a skilled storyteller, pulling out details that made the narrative sing. When she asked Emily directly why she'd risked her job for a building, Emily found herself giving the most honest answers she'd ever spoken aloud. I spent 5 years feeling invisible, going through the motions, telling myself that work was just work, that nothing I did really mattered. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Then, I found those blueprints and saw how much care Harold Chen put into every detail. He made something beautiful because he believed beauty mattered, and I realized I'd stopped believing anything mattered. Emily's voice strengthened. Fighting for the Grandview wasn't really about saving a building. It was about remembering that ordinary people can create extraordinary things, that our choices matter, that caring about something bigger than ourselves isn't naive, it's necessary. Sarah wrote everything down, her expression thoughtful. That's going to be the heart of the story. After the interview, Emily and Robert sat in the coffee shop for another hour, too exhausted to move. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, casting long shadows across their table. "What are you going to do if you buy the hotel?" Emily asked quietly. "Restore it properly. Maintain Harold's vision while updating it for modern use. Create a nonprofit foundation to preserve the history. And I'm going to need a general manager who understands what this place means. Someone who knows every corner of the building, every guest's preference, every detail of how it should run." Emily's breath caught. "Robert, I'm offering you a job." "Emily, when I buy the Grandview, I want you to manage it with me. Not as a receptionist, as a full partner in making this place what it's meant to be." Tears pricked Emily's eyes. A week ago, she'd been a suspended employee with no prospects and no purpose. Now she was being offered a chance to help preserve a legacy, to honor Harold Shen's vision, to turn her awakening into something tangible. "I don't have management experience," she said, but her voice was already full of yes. "You organized a community movement in 72 hours. You exposed financial fraud. You made people care about something they'd taken for granted." Robert smiled. "That's exactly the kind of management experience this place needs." "Then, yes." Emily wiped her eyes, laughing through tears. "Yes, absolutely." They shook hands across the table, cementing the promise. The following weeks passed in a blur of investigations, negotiations, and media attention. Dana Shaw was formally charged with arson, embezzlement, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Her bail was set high. The retirement fund pressed for it, arguing she was a flight risk given the amount stolen. Malcolm Boss cooperated with investigators in exchange for leniency, providing evidence of Dana's fraud scheme. He claimed he'd been deceived about the property's true condition and finances. Whether that was true or a self-serving spin remained debatable, but his testimony helped build a case against Dana. The hotel remained closed while fire damage was repaired and structural assessments completed. Robert's purchase negotiations proceeded slowly but steadily. The retirement fund board, once they understood the full scope of Dana's theft, was eager to sell to someone who valued the property beyond its balance sheet. Emily spent those weeks documenting everything for the historical preservation application. She interviewed former employees, collected old photos from guests, researched the neighborhood's history, and worked with architectural historians to create a comprehensive record of the Grandview's significance. The journal from their impromptu exhibition had become a treasure trove, 300 handwritten testimonials about what the building meant to people. Emily compiled them into a bound volume, each entry a small prayer for preservation. 6 weeks after the fire, Robert's purchase was finalized. He paid fair market value, not the artificially deflated price Dana had arranged, ensuring the retirement fund recovered much of what was stolen. The transaction made news. Architect's grandson buys hotel grandfather designed. On the day the sale closed, Robert gave Emily a small wrapped box. Inside was a key card to room 314, but instead of the usual plastic, it was metal, engraved with a message. For Emily Martinez, who remembered that ordinary things matter. RC. "Your first official act as general manager," Robert said, "is to help me figure out which rooms need renovation first." They walked through the Grandview together, taking inventory. Some spaces had held up beautifully, The lobby's marble and ironwork still glimmed. Others showed years of Dana's neglect, water damage, peeling paint, outdated fixtures. But the bones were strong. Harold Chen had built well. Emily stopped in front of the library nook, now a permanent installation. They'd kept all the exhibition materials there, added professional lighting, created plaques explaining the history. Guests could still add to the journal, could still read Harold's letters, could still connect with the story. "This is where it started," she said softly, with a question about the stories buildings hold. Robert stood beside her, looking at his grandfather's wedding photo. "And now we get to hold those stories, preserve them, add to them." Emily thought about the path that had brought her here. 5 years of sleepwalking followed by one envelope of blueprints that changed everything. She'd lost a job she'd stopped caring about and found a purpose she'd never known she needed. The Grandview would reopen in 3 months after renovations. They'd hired back most of the former staff, including Kayla, who'd been promoted to assistant manager for her role in starting the viral campaign. They'd established partnerships with the Historical Society, the Architecture School, and several community organizations. Linda Zhao had succeeded in expanding the historical designation to cover interior elements, ensuring future protections. The story had inspired similar preservation efforts in 3 other cities. And the Tribune article, when it published, won Sarah a Regional Journalism Award. But beyond all of that, beyond the headlines and the legal victories and the restored architecture, what mattered most to Emily was the realization that had sparked everything. Ordinary people can make extraordinary differences. Buildings held stories because people chose to care. And sometimes finding your purpose meant fighting for something bigger than yourself.
Up next, 2 more incredible stories are waiting for you right on your screen. If you enjoyed this one, you won't want to miss these. Just click to watch and don't forget to subscribe.